morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's show. And of course, you might be wondering or looking at your screen now and thinking, yo, that's not Leandra. But ladies and gentlemen, there is something going on for some reason on this highway. Yeah, I just spoke to Leandra now and on a video call, and she was actually just showing me there's something quite hectic going on the road there. I don't know, the cops have blocked off the whole road and there's a whole commotion going on there. So I don't really know what is the situation over there, but she's definitely she's literally around the corner, but she's standing in that traffic. And so obviously I was supposed to be, I'm on the show today, so she was like, yo, are you in studio yet? I was like, yep. She's like, okay, just hop on then and let's get this party started. So I am of course Xavier Hendricks, and of course you guys know me from the Monday morning shake. The Monday what? Why am I not remembering my own show? The morning shake. Yeah, and then of course, this is the Wednesday warm-up with Leandra, and the conversation today, again, like Monday, we started off the conversation seriously heavy, and as I said on Monday morning, it felt like a heavy steak early in the morning. I mean, you know how it is, when you wake up, sometimes you're not really hungry. Some people wake up hungry. I don't. I can have tea in the morning, but some people wake up hungry. But Monday morning's topic, and even today's topic, is like waking up and eating a full steak early in the morning, the first thing you do. So it's quite heavy. And of course, it's the age-old debate of our heritage and our culture. As brown people in South Africa, a lot of brown people do feel marginalized, and rightfully so. Reason being because there has been a lot of marginalization going on in the brown community. Purposely excluded from a lot of things, purposely excluded from being like especially this whole situation where you have to fill in a form at the bank, and you are now looking at the form and they say you must tick black, white, colored, Indian, and you sitting there looking at this form and you're like, so what does this have to do with anything? If we're saying we want to be one and we want to be equal and we want to, whatever, I can understand the element of census, and I can understand the element of data capturing, and I can understand the element of saying that, okay, we all, these are how many white people are here, these are how many brown people are here, these are how many black people are here. I understand that element. But if we are saying that we're striving for a culture and a society where we can all be inclusive and included by everything, it's incredibly discouraging to sit there and still see that there's so much segregation going on, right? And so that's the basis of this morning's conversation. And then of course, when you look at brown people in general, especially in South Africa, there's the strong narrative that there is no culture. There's the strong narrative that there is no history, there is no heritage, and especially that it is Heritage Month. And when you begin to dig into the history like we have, you actually begin to realize there's quite a strong history and there's quite a strong heritage as it pertains to brown people in this country. But we then also begin to realize that there was deliberate damage done to our history, and deliberately things have been taken out of proportion. Deliberately things have been evaded or kind of ignored or deliberately written out of the history books, especially as it pertains to Khoi, especially as it pertains to San, especially as it pertains to the political spectrum of what we're trying to achieve here and what's going on in our country. You find that a lot of times, even politicians, they only go up until a certain, even up until a certain year when it comes to land reform. They neglect to go a little bit further, because then they would have to concede that land actually belongs to Khoi. And so there's a lot of foul play going on politically in South Africa. There's a lot of foul play going on simply because there's mines on these lands. There were diamonds found on these people's properties. It was found that this land was fruitful. And so obviously it's not in your best interest to come out and obviously, concede that, hey, hold on, this is actually these people's land. And so all these elements kind of put us as brown people in a box where we do feel marginalized. And a conversation that I was having with my father, and perhaps we can have this conversation, Leandra has made it when she does pull through, and Jesse's also made it. The conversation that we need to have is, Jess, for me personally, bro, I think that, look, you and I, we have the same father, and we know that Dad has always been the kind of person to want to go and find these family tree and go and understand where he's from and blah blah blah. Go to places, ask questions, meet with the uncles and all that kind of thing, so that we know where we're from, right? And for me, bro, I personally feel there's so much damage caused by randomly sleeping around, by randomly like having loose children all over the place, because psychological damage on that child. And I'm 35 years old now, and when I begin to ask questions about my heritage, when I begin to ask questions about my culture, when I begin to ask questions about my personal identity, the first thing I want to know is, okay, where do I come from? Who's my grandparents? Where did my great grandfather come from? What's the setup? And so imagine in a family structure where people don't even know their fathers, as like these people now, they don't even know who their father is, or the mother doesn't want to speak about the father, situations like that. So yesterday I was speaking to dad and I was like, yo, do you know your grandfather? And he was like, my father spoke about him like once or twice, but he didn't really say much about him. So I was like, okay, where does he come from? And he was like, I need to look into it because I need to know what's going on. And I believe that it's important, bro, to know kind of because it gives you an element of confidence, or like to say that, okay, at least I know this is my story. And when you get into conversations, especially conversations like this, and especially conversations that become so politically, segregated, you want to sit there and at least say, hi, bro, I come from here, there, be able to, identify and articulate yourself accordingly. What do you think, bro?
Yeah, no, firstly, good morning to all the viewers out there. Good morning, Xavier. Good morning, Livy. Hope you're doing well, girl. I agree with you 100%. It makes it easier once you know, obviously, where you're from and who's your opa scary and all that things. Who's who in the zoo?
Where do they
come from?
Yeah.
So it gives you more of an understanding and more of an idea, and it helps you as on your journey as well. Finding yourself, understanding, okay, this Opa, he was actually German, he's from here, he traveled from Germany, he came from here now, all these type of things. And it's interesting because then you feel like you're actually part of something now. You're like, hey, walking in the street telling people, hey, because Biggie German.
But here's the other $1 million debate that also happens, especially with brown people, is that how is it that sometimes you find that exactly what you said now, we're quick to say, oh, my Opa was German, my Opa was this, my Opa was that. But then we shy away from the fact that my Oma was a Khoi auntie.
Yeah.
Or my Oma was a Zulu auntie. Or my Oma was a Xhosa auntie. Or my Oma was from wherever, or whatever the case might be. True. And I think that's part of the argument also. It's like, why are we so excited to speak about one side, especially when it's related to white, and then we kind of shy away. But why do you think that is?
I think it's when you're not, like I said, it's when you're comfortable with who you are. Stereotyping of your race also at the end of the day. So people try to shy away from it because there's a stereotype around your culture or your race or something. So you're ashamed and you're scared to actually speak about it and say, I'm actually Khoi, I'm actually this, A, B, C, because of that stereotype that's been going around. So you don't want to associate yourself with that because you've seen white as right. Because when you look at Germans themselves, you look at white. It's difficult now and then to see a lot of color. That's why also when you have your Hitlers and them, it was fair skin, blue eyes, blonde hair, and
given that he himself didn't have those.
It made no sense. But anyway, so people tend to find attraction in that, where it's like, okay, if I say I'm this, maybe I'll get more, I don't know what's the word, but more
recognition
or something, because the stereotype that goes along with being Khoi or something isn't what you.
But you know it's interesting. Yesterday I was watching a documentary also while I was just preparing for the show. Now I was watching this documentary about the Khoi, and how there was this one. It was a German shepherd. It was a German. What do you call it? Like a scientist.
Yeah.
That came to do a lot of research, and he came to the Khoi civilization, and he reckons the way they were living was the way God intended for it to be. That the land was bountiful, that if you were hungry, there was, animals that you could just quickly slaughter and eat. There was meat.
It
There were-
wasn't quickly, but
It wasn't quickly, but it was
was
bountiful. It was
Yeah.
there. You could go out and hunt, and that was the
Yeah.
Khoi was the hunters, and the San was the gatherers, right? And that's why they say Khoisan hunter gatherers. So the woman would stay home and gather. So what the woman would do is they would have their farms, their setups, where they would then take the whatever the crops that they've grown, like carrots, potatoes, cabbage, whatever, lettuce, and all that stuff. So or whatever else, and the land was bountiful, and that's the beauty of South Africa, especially the fact that the soil is so rich and the weather is so nice, so that the things grow lekker, and so they would then gather during the day, while the gents would then go out, and the gents would go and hunt. So he reckons when he was doing his research, they were one of the most civilized people to ever live, bruh. The way that they discovered like natural things.
Yeah.
Like he has a small bow and arrow, right? That he just puts on his back. Small, like literally like that small, right? And this even says it in the documentary. It's like if you had to look at this bow, you wouldn't think it could kill a mouse. But they have discovered a way, where there's a certain lava that's in a beetle or something that they got there, where they just push out the lava and then it's poison. Then they put just a little bit on the tip. And then when they shoot a kudu, bruh, you know how big, we've been hunting before, you know how big those animals are, like they're bigger than horses. He shoots a kudu with that thing. That thing drops, right? They were so advanced that they could see if you walked in the field. They were so advanced, brother. They could see that was your footprints. They would say, Jesse was here. He went up there now. We can see just by the way the grass is laying. They can smell it. They can
only
pick something
imagine
up.
How difficult cheating was back then.
They said that, yeah, that's what they said.
He was young.
Yeah, that's what they said. They said that they were so advanced, brother, that they could. Yeah. They were so advanced that they could see that so and so was here, this animal was here, this animal is limping, so he went this direction. This animal was shot with this and that and that. It's almost close to death, so he should be laying close here. Bruh, he says that civilization was so advanced, and he says that with the advent of the British people coming, colonizing, and even the Dutch colonizing, they came to mess up the whole ecosystem to where now people are poor, where you have now they have, like Andrew says, they have yachts and they have knots. So it's like, now it's so segregated. He said that time it was like, bruh, everyone had food, everyone could do what they want, everyone could travel where they want, everyone could move around. But now with the advent of these hierarchies that's been put in place, it's like, you poor, you rich. That's how the world works now. So, ladies and gentlemen, of course, I've already explained to you where she was, but she has joined us.
Man, yo, enemy of progress. I'm convinced, like, whoever did not want me to be on the show today has set it up in such a manner that I just couldn't get here. But look at God.
Was it traffic?
It was traffic. There was.
What was it? What was it when you
I
passed?
don't know. There was on the N1 coming this way. There was a heavy police presence on the side of the road, and they were like there by Bosman's area, looking blocked off the. So I don't know. It must be something regarding crime or whatever. But good morning. Thank you so much, Xavier, for doing justice to the intro over there.
Were you watching on your phone?
No.
I don't have data.
The data struggle is real.
I don't have data. You know, with load shedding, then you must now know that you're going to use your data when there's load shedding. So
That's a problem, bro.
If
Hey,
you
guys,
delay-
guess what? I got Wi-Fi in my house.
Congratulations.
But then just when the Wi-Fi came on, it was load shedding, so I had to buy data again. It's like
you are progressing. So Zach, just tell me quickly, what did you guys talk about? I know I walked in, obviously, like just.
So I started the show about the sad reality that the brown people are being kind of sidelined and marginalized in what was originally their native land, right?
Okay,
and now they don't really have much to say. We kind of have to bring together these little consortiums to try and fight for land, and because they've lost so much ground in the process that it's now incredibly difficult for them to gather some sort of constituency to say, okay guys, this is what we're going to fight for. And also there's another argument also that there's a lot of division even in that also. It's and that that division is making it even more difficult for us to say, hey, come on, we're on the same page, or come, let's work towards something.
Yeah.
Then I spoke about a conversation I had with my father yesterday.
Yes.
Because I went home and I asked him after we were reading this book here about that lady that translated the first Bible, and her surname is Hendricks. And I asked my father, how far up can you go?
Yes.
You know this, auntie.
No, bro. How is he gonna know that? That was very long ago.
See, that was in
But-
the early 1800s.
Yeah, so I'm saying that I asked my father, how far up can you go?
Yeah.
And I was mentioning that it's super, super sad to me that we are living in a culture where we celebrate promiscuity, right? Because what the damage that it does is that now this child doesn't know his father, she doesn't know her father. Now, if I'm as a 35-year-old man
Just
getting to a place where I'm trying to understand my innermost being and trying to understand who I am and where I'm from and what my heritage is, especially embarrassing when you come to school and it's culture day and whatever else, and you thinking, yeah, what must I now wear, because
Exactly.
I'm not Zulu, I'm not Xhosa, I'm not, I'm not Afrikaner, so I can't, start that kort broekie and whatever. They have certain cultures that cultural dress codes. And so as a 35-year-old man sitting there thinking, okay, right now, what's my story?
Yes.
Where do I come from?
Yes.
And I have the privilege to go to my father and ask. I even have the privilege that I knew my grandfather.
Exactly.
I even have the privilege that now my children can ask me, and they know their grandfather, and I can tell them about their great-grandfather because I knew him while he was still alive. And so that's now 4 generations that I can tell, which enhances your ability to know who you are as an individual. So it's incredibly sad to see the promiscuity and the kind of lifestyle that people are just living, because that child's going to get to an age where he's going to ask, now who's my people? Where am I from? What's my story?
Yes.
And they're not going to be able to give answers because it's just all over the place.
Yeah.
And so again, that highlights the necessity to do things the right way, because for the sake of your culture. And we know that the Bible is very strong with lineage.
Yeah.
There's whole chapters about lineage.
Yes.
About we come from here, and the line of Jesus, the bloodline, and So that's basically what we're speaking about early on in the show.
Okay, so that's a good intro to start off the show. We're talking about the Khoisan-Coloured debate, right? And like you were saying, rightfully so, growing up, even for myself as a brown person who is racially classified in South Africa as coloured, and like we were saying last week on the show, we obviously... it depends where in your worldview you stand on the matter. Are you somebody that doesn't want to identify as the term coloured? Are you somebody who wants to who is fine with it? Because look, the term coloured, right? Not all coloured people share the same sentiments. There's some people that don't find anything wrong with being called coloured, and the racial classification thereof. But it is a big contesting issue at the moment, and it has caused a lot of controversy, especially now that there's a conscientizing that's happening among brown
And there's some kind of people who don't want to be involved with the Khoi story.
Exactly, exactly.
I'm not Khoi.
Exactly. There's people that there's the rejectionists who are like, I don't want this colored identity. Then there are people like you were saying. I walked in that the German thing, because us also in our family we do. My great grandfather was a German Jew from Germany, right? He was a Jewish man from Germany, and my great grandmother is actually from Botswana, right? And when I had the conversation with my grandmother before she died, but also we used to talk about it a lot. They call them Baralong, right?
But remember, a lot of the Khoi is in the Kalahari, which is Botswana and Namibia.
Yes. Now, but my great grandmother was fair skinned, and my grandmother was extremely white with reddish undertones. And then my grandfather is German. So there's all these, the complexities of our race, of our culture, right? But before I continue, I want to highlight something. So last week we started the conversation and we were talking about the black and brown South Africans pitting against the against each other. But this week we are specifically dealing with the Khoisan-Coloured debate, and so this is the book that I want to highlight, and most of our references are going to come. Xavier also spoke about it earlier. I know that both Xavier and Jesse have a copy of this book, and it's Bastards or Humans, right? This is volume 1, and volume 1 is the unspoken heritage of coloured people. Its origins, identity, culture, and challenges. It's by a man named Dr. Ruben Richards, an absolutely brilliant
Which we have,
thinker.
which my father has interviewed on this show before.
He has been on the Inside Show with Dr. Carl Hendricks. And so it would be wise to go and have a look at that. But I like what he starts off saying, right? And this is the pocket version of this book. If you are interested in purchasing the book, we do have copies available here on site. So please do send the email, or you can call us. The number to call is 011 494 1363. I will repeat that again at the end, and I will put it in the description
And
after
drop a
this.
message here in the comments also.
And you can drop a message if you'd like a copy. There's 2 volumes of this, and then there's the pocket edition, right? I will also give you prices and stuff once you make contact with us. Or you can email us on homeofinsights@gmail.com. Or you can send us an email, DM on Instagram, slide into the DMs, yo. But anyway, I like how he starts off. He speaks about the 3 major threats to identity, and we are actually speaking about identity because it is Heritage Month, right? And there's 3 major threats to identity. He says the first major threat to identity, especially of the Khoisan, he's specifically speaking about the Khoisan, right? The indigenes. I know that this man over here, Mr. Patrick Tariq Mellet, he writes The Lie of 1652, also a coloured man, or however he wishes to identify himself with, but he would be considered racially classified as coloured. Oh, Dr. Ruben Richards is also racially classified as coloured, Cape coloured. And he speaks about the lie of 1652, a decolonized history of land. And he was speaking about the sensitivity that you must address language-wise, how sensitive you must be when you address these situations, because it is a sensitive issue. I mean, if you think about the history, the genetic history of what is now racially classified as coloured people, it is a brutal history. It is a very, very hurtful, painful history, right? And which we will get into. But he says genocide was one of it. And a lot of the times we hear about the genocide in Rwanda. We hear about the genocide that happened in Uganda. We hear about the genocide that happened in these countries. But there was a genocide on Southern African soil with the Khoisan. Because if you think about it, when smallpox came, for instance, there was genocide, the warfare that happened, right? Then there was disease such as smallpox that killed almost 85% to 90% of the population. And then there is the third threat is indoctrination. And this is the one that I specifically want to speak about today. It's the indoctrination part. And he says here on page 7 of the pocket book, all identities other than white were criminalized during the colonial and apartheid era. However, the difference is that unlike black identity, colored identity was and continues to be deliberately linked to the racial mixing image, whereas black African identity does not carry the connotation of mixing, which was interpreted to be negative. Then he goes on in the next, on part 3, and this is the part that I want to get to so that we can start dealing with this issue. He says that the title is Affirming and Celebrating the Mix. And this is the part that this show is all about. Affirming and celebrating the mix. It is a historical and biological fact that there were sexual relations across cultural, social, and racial lines, and that these liaisons or unions produced offspring. Attaching a less than human value to the offspring of these mixed unions is a distortion of the essence of humanity. And what he's saying here is that even as colored people who are racially classified as colored, we must get away from the prejudices placed on us and the negative connotations that is placed on us for being mixed. That is your superpower. The fact that you are mixed is what makes you uniquely human, right?
But that's what Trevor Noah harnessed so well.
Yeah.
He spoke about his Swiss father and his black mother Because technically, by the definition of which South Africans give colours, Trevor Noah is 100% purebred coloured.
Exactly.
If you're gonna go with you
Yes.
mixed, you a
Yes.
rape case. You're from
Exactly.
a white father and a black mother.
Yeah.
So if that's the definition we're giving coloured, then he's coloured. But now again, like last week's conversation, whenever it is that a brown person does reach certain type of heights, they then get claimed
Yes.
by one particular race. And even so that as coloured, technically we can't really claim Trevor either. Because if we begin to speak about coloured culture, over time coloureds have developed a different culture.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the way we speak is a culture.
Yeah.
Yeah, my bro, away, sharp.
Yes.
Things that we say.
Yes.
The way the accent
Yes.
is a culture. If you hear a brown person speaking on the phone, you can immediately identify this is a color.
Yeah.
If you hear a black person speaking, you can hear it's a black person.
Yes.
If you hear a white person speaking, you can hear it's a white person. So there's nothing wrong with that. That's how you speak. So technically, we can't even then classify him in that way. But the argument that Dr. Ruben Richards makes in that section in that portion you just read, I want to agree 100% with that. To say that why are we using this to diversify or cause damage, as opposed to saying, hey, hold on, let's use this. And exactly last week we spoke a lot about the PA and whatever, but this is one of the things they actually say. They're like, no, we're supposed to come together and say, but yeah, my Oma was black or Xhosa or Zulu or whatever, and my Opa was a white man from wherever. So that makes me half this and half that,
Yeah.
and fully this.
Yes.
So technically, I can't be racist
Yeah.
because I'm technically half black. Number two, I can't be racist to the whites because I'm technically half white.
Yeah.
So you can actually, as you said earlier, you can actually use that then as a superpower and say that, hey man, I'm half of this and half of that, but I'm now this. So I can kind of play, and Trevor Noah did that perfectly. He plays in both fields.
It's true, but I don't completely agree with that because I do believe that you can still be racist, even though you're half and half. Because
can.
there is definitely, I mean, we said it earlier, right? Where there are a lot of colored people who don't want to identify with their African roots. They prefer the European roots. And that comes through that very passage that Dr. Ruben speaks about, indoctrination. We have been indoctrinated
That white is right.
that white is right? White people don't have to defend their identity. They don't have to defend their culture. They don't have to defend where they come from. They don't have to defend that. But they have put it again back to last week's conversation. And unfortunately, a lot of people on TikTok did not understand it because they didn't go and watch the video in full, where we are saying that there is a deliberate pitting of black and brown South Africans against each other. And it's most of the time, it's not even modern day society, what currently. It's not the white person doing it. It's the black and the brown person doing it to each other. Right?
But that's
Where
the
there's
genius of
constant-
apartheid, because that was the whole
Exactly.
that was the whole strategy.
And the
Come, let's put these
legacy
people
of
against-
apartheid still lives on. And it's evident in the way that we fight each other. So, going back to the colored identity thing, you were speaking about culture and heritage. And now that we're speaking about culture and heritage, so that before I get into the headlines that we're going to be discussing today, in chapter 6 of the pocket book, right, and chapter 6 of volume 1 in Humans, Bastards or Humans, Dr. Ruben Richards speaks about, part 1, he speaks about, is culture dynamic or static? He asks the question. And yeah, he speaks about definitions. He says that, I hold the view that we enter the world with a clear sheet and that we are not born with culture or identity. Instead, we are influenced by the place and people around us, and we then imitate or mimic what we see around us. He calls this the double P factor, place and people. If culture is who you are, then heritage is what you do. A person's heritage is made up of the practices and traditions that are passed on from parents to children. A person's identity is made up of their own character combined with their family and social roots. Identity, like culture, is ever changing. That's the reason why you mentioned. Under the apartheid racial classification. Yes, Trevor Noah, as an example, would be classified as colored, right? However, you are 100% correct in saying that his culture, his heritage is different to what would be considered culturally classified, racially classified as colored. Because he grew up in a different environment
grew up in a
with
black
different
environment.
traditions, with different
black
customs,
traditions, yeah.
right? And this is the thing that
Well,
Patrick...
not black. What was his granny?
Yeah, she was black.
She was black, but I mean a particular kind of culture. I don't want to blanket black because there's also
Yeah.
Zulu, Xhosa, Pedi, different types. But anyway, but
yeah.
that's the point, yeah.
Xhosa. She was Xhosa. Okay. Then Patrick Tariq Mellet says that this thing that we are telling each other, you are this race and you are that race and you are... He says it's complete rubbish because firstly, like we mentioned last week, it's colonial terms, right, that has been implemented to box people, to keep slaves enslaved, basically the slave mentality. And then he goes on and he says that race is a personal thing. Identity is a personal thing. It's not going to be the same. Even you cannot clump everybody together as you are colored, you are other colored, because that's how it was. You are Cape Malay, you are this. It's a personal thing because within one family, yeah, we spoke about it, especially you will find it amongst colored people. That one part of the family is extremely white, so they're more European looking. Another part of the family is more black.
You can even find a brother and sister from the same parents.
That looks different, but and this is what Dr. Ruben Richards says, this is the essence of humanity. In fact, currently, modern society, nobody can claim being an Aryan race. Nobody can claim purity.
Whatever,
they
yeah.
cannot complain. They cannot claim purity. But now we sit with a situation where people are trying to dictate to other people, yeah, you are this and you will stay that. You will be, you are mixed, you are product of rape, you are this, you are that. How is that not racist? How is that not racist by you
racist.
continuously classifying and subjecting people to a specific stereotype, and that is supposed to be okay in a dispensation where we are supposed to be celebrating democracy.
But the irony of the 21st century society is exactly that. The fact that we are so hypersensitive in the 21st century. If you say anything about whichever community is so protected, you can get cancelled, you can lose your job, you can blah, 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 blah.
Yes.
But in the same token, you can be told things like that.
Yes.
And nobody's going to say anything. So the hypocrisy of the culture is so... like it's
absurd.
It's ridiculous that you can see that you can speak about brown people and tell them they rape cases.
Yeah.
But if you say anything about a protected community like the LGBT or protected community, like if you say anything about Black Lives Matter, if you say anything, whatever that the culture has deemed this is a protected society. If you say anything about this, you're gonna lose your job, you're gonna remove your platform,
Yes.
we're gonna isolate you from society. But we can say that about you.
Yeah.
Which is hurtful and harmful things, because as a brown person to hear that, it's like a stab in your...
It
You're like,
is.
oh,
Exactly.
you say that.
Exactly.
It's incredibly offensive.
Exactly.
And in a society that we're getting offended for any random thing, things that we're getting offended for the truth,
Yeah.
and you feeling it's okay to say that, it's like, no.
So I'm going to read this headline, and the producer will put it up on the screen as well. Then I want to get your thoughts on this specifically. Last week we spoke about triple BE, and that also caused quite a stir on TikTok when I posted that clip, which we will debunk some of the things that the people have been saying, right, with actual facts, because many people said I should go and do my research. So I went to go do further research. So the headline reads, right, this was an article posted on the 15th of July 2016 on news24.com. The title is Prisons Department Decision Not to Promote Coloured Staff Unfair Discrimination, Concord. Then the intro reads as follows. In a ruling that will impact how employment equity is applied across the country, the Constitutional Court found on Friday that the decision by the Department of Correctional Services to not promote 7 coloured Western Cape employees was unfair discrimination. At the heart of this case were judgments by the Labour Court and Labour Appeal Court on 10 employees of the department in the province, 9 coloured and 1 white, who were not promoted despite being recommended for the posts. The department made their decision not to promote them based on its employment equity plan. What do you guys think about this? They say that it's because of the employment equity plan. You know that there's a quota system. You know that with triple BEE, a specific amount of people need to be the vast majority of the posts that are full need to be Black African, and then the rest is given to whoever else. First Indian, then coloured, then white. So what do you guys think about the situation? Remember last week I was saying with the Wade van die Kerk situation. This was in the same time. It was 2016, right? So they celebrated Wade van die Kerk as a South African. A lot of people were like, well, he would be classified under Black because he's a Black African, right? But in this instance, when it comes to promotions, they are not Black. They are coloured. And therefore, they cannot be promoted. So what do you guys think about this?
My only problem with the quota system is it's now just determined on skin color, and not based on your
Actual
ability to do the
performance,
job. Yeah. So now you're at the point where, okay, Xavier's colored, that man next to you is Black. Let's give it to him. But Xavier's yet a better performing person than what he is in terms of doing the job. And now I feel like it's just very unfair. That in itself is then discrimination.
Yes.
Because now this guy's been working so hard to get a post, but now because of his skin color, he didn't wake up and say, I'm gonna be colored today, I'm gonna be Black today. He was born this way.
Yeah.
He can't help it. He worked hard to do what he's doing at this point.
But now he's getting overlooked
because he's brown.
Which is the epitome of racism.
Yeah,
That's the whole definition of racism. Being overlooked because of your skin tone.
And that's even in sport. You know, I love sport, and I'll always make reference to sport. Even in sport, I find it's very, very unfair. You have in football, you have great Indian gents that can play ball. You have some that's very good.
Yes.
You have whites that are so very good. You have colors that's very good. You have blacks that's very good. But because of a quota system, you can't be playing those people because there has to be a certain amount of Black people in this team and stuff like that. It's very unfair. It should be based on performance, what you're able to bring to the table.
And even in football, it gets to a place where those people that are in charge of the football associations are so adamant about quotas in that way that even if like the South African football team is probably one of the worst performing teams probably in the world at this point, right? And the reason it is that way is only because of politics.
Yes.
That's all it is. Because when you have your, and I'm just making this as an example, when you do have your brown players, they literally have to go and play in London or England or they have to go play in Russia or somewhere, Sweden or something.
Wade van die Kerk is also not here anymore.
Yeah, because of exactly that, and it's blatant racism. That's literally what it is. There's no person that can come here, and I'll be open to have somebody come and sit on the show and actually debate and have open discourse about this and change my mind about the fact that that's not blatant racism.
Yes.
It's blatant racism. It's like, you are colored, we don't want you here. And I can go even one step further to tell you stories about people that have shared their stories with me. And I wouldn't throw anyone under the bus, but they share their stories with me. I say, they make us take muti. I say, they make us pray to sangomas, and if we don't want to, we must bath in blood and things. And if we don't want to, they don't care about the fact that you are Christian. They don't care about the fact that you don't believe in those things. That's blatant discrimination. Blatant.
But not only that,
and it's disregarding another person's identity and culture.
I know many coaches. And I know some that's coaching PSL. I know some in Castle and all this type of things, NFT. And there's just one particular, I'm not always going to mention his name, but he coaches a big team. And he's a colored guy, and he started bringing players to the team that he felt can perform and that can do the job. And a lot of them were colored.
Yes.
And which they can.
And which
and
they
that
can.
team will end up winning.
And they did. When they played a few games and they were winning the games. Until he got called into a meeting. And he says it's so unfair and it's in your face. It's blatant. They're not scared to say. They told him straight, you're playing too many colored players at this point in time. You need to play more black players. You can't be playing so many colors because what's people going to think?
So what if half of the majority of the team at this point is black also? But the South African football team is absolute crap. It's horrible. It's like it's bad, bro. It's to the point where South Africans don't even watch Bafana anymore. You hear they're playing wherever, nobody cares, nobody's interested because they just know they're probably gonna lose 5-0 or something. You hear them playing a team that you've never heard of, you already know those people. So if that guy comes and says, here's 7 colored players, we put them in a Bafana squad, tomorrow the team will be better. But no, we can't. They colored.
Yeah.
There's discrimination, bro, on the highest level and blatantly also.
And it's like they say it's a quota and everything. You can't play this amount of colored people at the same time and stuff like that. And it's like, but where does it even make sense to have something like that? Just let the gents play. They can do the job. Let them play.
And that's part of the reason why they also fought with the rugby. When this quota started pushing to say, nah, this team must change. Then they were like, yeah.
And it's also difficult for your colored coaches at the end of the day, because I know a lot of them, they say they want to help the boys, but they also trying to put food on the table for
so
their
now they
families.
must just go with
so
the
they have to
narrative
just
now.
go with the narrative. They can't.
Exactly.
They have to just do what they told.
Exactly.
So, but what makes that different from apartheid?
There's no difference. It's basically...
So look, the thing is, you know, when we speak about, because we always talk about correcting the wrongs of the past, and it's true, you have to correct the wrongs of the past. And the fact of the matter is, when we deal with things like this, it is a very sensitive issue, because there is a notion, and it's what you will find in this book over here, is where the author says that he mentions that in the 1970s, P.W. Botha, he came up with the Stratcom counterinsurgent strategy and the total national strategy, and then he came up with this notion of toenadering. And basically toenadering, what it means is it's a colored alignment with white Afrikaners, right? But this was used to further divide people. It wasn't used to give colored people a hand up. It was a means of dividing people further, because again, if we go back to history and we go back to the predominant inhabitants of Southern Africa at the time, even before the Dutch came in 1652, because there has been long-standing European relations with Africa before the Dutch came in 1652. So this has been ongoing for a very long time. There was relations, but they knew that this was the inhabitants of a particular group that was then coined by Leonard Schulze, Khoisan, right? But then what the apartheid government did, they further entrenched that divide, right, for their own gain as well. And so that's the reason why the black people will say, yeah, but colored people got the upper hand and colored people did better in apartheid than what black people did. But although that was the case, and although there were many playwrights, is what we call it in our community, as coloreds, light-skinned coloreds, that they played into that narrative, and they played into gaining benefits from it. But they were smart.
They would tar the roads in Eldos and then put sand roads in Soweto.
Exactly.
Like subtle changes like that.
Exactly.
And then it will cause a divide.
It's the pitting of the black and brown against each other. But listen to this, and this is an article that I found, and all the links are in the description below. You can go read for yourself, right? And it's on this, it's on the South African history website, and it says here that in one sense the colored category allowed the Khoisan social, political and economic privileges denied to the black population, right, such as not being required to carry a passbook. Nevertheless, so-called coloreds remain subject to harsh discrimination, including the segregation of amenities such as schools and restaurants, and the forcible relocation of over 500,000 colored people after the Group Areas Act of 1950. In this process, property owners were mistakenly compensated, and long-standing communities found themselves broken up, contributing to a further fracturing of the Khoisan identities. That's the reason why many homes were broken up. This guy speaks about it. He is so light-skinned. He looks white. If you go and look at the author, he looks completely white, but he grew up in District 6, which is predominantly colored. They were forcibly removed from District 6, and families were broken up because of the Group Areas Act. And can you imagine the pain of being stripped of your family because your mother is too dark skinned and your father is light skinned? Now you must now, because you are a half-bred, you must now go live with your mother, looking the way you look as a white person, go and live with your mother in a predominantly colored area. The discrimination further upon a child like that, right? So don't think that it was just, oh, you guys got the better end of the stick. No, we didn't get the better end of the stick. Our forefathers and our ancestors did not get the better end of the stick.
My parents were removed from the house also because of the Land Act.
Right.
And they were put into Pramosa, which was a colored area. And people were removed from their big lands and their plots and the things and put into Elders, which was now made a colored area. Western, Westbury, Riverlee, Cape Flats. District 6 was broken up. Everyone was shoved into Cape Flats. Pumped with drugs. And now we can come and say, yeah, look, they're all druggies and they're all gangsters. And they're all... Bruh, you can't design a system purposely to segregate people and to make them drug addicts and to put that... And which they're not all drug addicts. There's a lot of people that came back out of it and moved back to the areas that they were from, or moved back in, and had to fight 3 times harder to get out of that, to get them, including my parents, to get themselves out of that situation and say, nah, man, we can't carry on like this. My father made a conscious effort and a conscious decision to say that, no, man, I'm going to take my children out of this environment and go and find a better environment for them.
Yeah. And then it goes on further to say that coloureds were removed from the common voters' roll in 1956. They were placed on a separate voters' roll which would permit them to elect 4 whites to represent them in the House of Assembly, an activity which was seen as pointless by many members of the coloured community. As a result, their political participation declined, with only 50.2% of coloureds voting in the next election and many refusing to register for the new voters' roll. I mean, we get guys like political activists like Ashley Kriel. You don't hear about Ashley Kriel.
Even Ellen Boesak, they purposely removed him.
He played a vital role, in the very ANC and Umkhonto where he played a vital role in the liberation of Africans as a whole. And he's speaking about whether it be coloured, Indian, black. He played a vital role and he was shot dead at a very tender age because he refused to bow to the system. But you don't hear about Ashley Kriel. How many of our people know about the Ashley Kriel? Yeah, we know about Ellen Boesak, right? He's
but also because we had to kind of keep it in people's faces like, hey, this guy, he was fighting with Mandela.
But there is several others whose names never get mentioned because, again, it's back to that thing of, you bring up one instance like this where you're like, yeah, but you guys had it your forefathers, your ancestors had it better than our ancestors, which is not true. Yes, I'm not disputing the fact that there was, in some cases, for the divide, they did give...
Purposely design it like that.
And it wasn't even much benefit if you look at it. I mean, if we're going to compare apples with freaking pips, right? Then what are we actually trying to compare here?
But there wasn't a benefit. If you look at up until 1990, I was born already when apartheid was still a thing.
Yes.
I'm like some of the guys says, I'm that old. For you guys that came here, you born in 2000 and whatever else. I'm old enough I was born in apartheid. I'm old enough to remember certain things. In 1990, my sister was born in 1990. She was born in 95. In 1990 is when everything started shifting. Is when Mandela, the whole situation with Mandela and all that kind of things. And then 1994 was when we were able to now vote properly and ANC basically took over the way it is now.
Yeah.
And even that is a whole story about whether we've actually moved forward or we actually moved backwards, especially with infrastructure, with theft and corruption and all that nonsense. But so the thing is, the point I was making is that time, if you go to the Apartheid Museum, which is right next to Gold Reef City here in Johannesburg South, it's up the road from us here, there was an entrance which my parents couldn't go in. It said, ni blank and blank. My parents, I'm talking about my parents, my father that's turning 60 in next month or 2 months. He could not go into the shop. He had to buy like he's buying by a tuck shop, by a window.
Yeah.
My father's aunt, the first time in 1990, when they were allowed to go into a shop, like the way we go into Checkers,
Yes.
and put food into a trolley to go pay at the till. She used to tell my father's sister, "Jy steel die boere se goede, jy steel die boere se goede, jy kan nie die boere se goede steel." Because she thought, bruh, we're not allowed to be in the shop, and now you're taking things off the shelf and you're putting it into a trolley. You stealing the white people, and she was so scared, bruh. And then my oma used to explain to her, "Nee, steel nie die boere se goede nie, ons gaan nie dinge se ons gaan betaal. We're gonna go pay there at the till. We're not stealing it." She was like, "You steal die boere." So she was so damaged to say that we must buy by the back window. We can't come and go walk in the shop and take the things that she's stealing.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm saying that there was water fountains that said blank and nie blank. There was benches in the park that said blank and nie blank. They didn't worry whether you were colored, whether you were Indian. Hey, you couldn't sit there. What the Indian people did is, especially those that were pushed to like Lenasia and those areas, they managed to work themselves a nice plan where they set up like towns and stuff for themselves where they were. Like if you go to Lens now, there's factories there, and there's, they've set it up for themselves where they were, which was a smart way of doing things. They're like, okay, the white people don't want us to come there, we'll start our own dorpie here. And they set up shops and whatever else, which worked. They built their own economy literally in where they were. The brown people didn't do that.
Yeah.
Which was a downfall on our side. We should have said, okay, right now, let's set up, the best we got was a shop, right? Or a house shop. There around the corner, VVV, wat brood en melk verkoop. So if we had to also set it up to say that, okay, let's generate our own economy, maybe we would have been in a better position. But we also didn't do that.
Back into this issue again with the quota system and triple BE and currently where we are. I mean, this is 2020, right? That was 2016. This is 2020. Another article that was found on the South African Human Rights Commission.org.za. The heading reads, the South African Human Rights Commission confirms probe into colored teacher who self-identified as African. So they confirm, is the official use of apartheid-era racial categories a human rights violation? It's a question the South African Human Rights Commission is due to answer after the organization confirmed it was looking into a race row involving a Western Cape teacher. The commission on Monday confirmed it would rule on a complaint it received relating to Oudtshoorn teacher Glenn Snyman, who last month was formally charged with fraud by the Western Cape Education Department after self-identifying as African in a 2017 application for a post at another school. Needless to say, the application was unsuccessful. Then the Department of Education laid a charge against him for fraud for identifying as African. They obviously found, then they withdrew the charge, and but now there was a probe that went into this racial classification again. That you take this man to court, you accuse him of fraud for identifying as African. So, and that is the argument that is happening, where the people are saying that coloreds are not African. It goes back again then to what we were discussing earlier with regards to the Khoisan. Can colored people claim the Khoisan heritage? And this is something that I found, right? The Land Restitution Act of 1994 does not make provision for land which communities lost before the assigned cut-off date of 1913 with the proclamation of the Native Land Act. And this is the things that we discuss. When even now, ANC government, our current government, when we are talking about land restitution, they only go up until a certain point. They don't go before that because they know that if they go before that, they have to include what you would classify as colored people in that, right?
And then that means they have to give up majority of South Africa because that's what it was.
It goes on further to say that land restitution in the post-apartheid era has held little benefit for the Khoisan peoples. Khoisan communities were dispossessed of most of their land during the earlier colonial era, especially in the early 19th century, and hence the 1913 Native Native Land Act did not make any mention of Khoisan land confiscation. Now you ask yourself the question, yeah, but that still doesn't answer the question to whether colored people can classify themselves as Khoisan. And a lot of people are saying that coloreds are not Khoisan, they are mixed. But let us go further into what has happened, right? It says here that traditional lifestyles and cultures of distinct communities were often altered by intermarriage with different ethnic groups, especially in the Western Cape. Evidence of intermarriage both between Khoi and San populations and with colonial slave populations, as well as with Bantu-speaking farmers and white settlers. This created a degree of fluidity in the Khoisan identity in terms of both economic activity as well as language. Listen to this to answer your question. Later, under the apartheid government, Khoisan people were forced to register as coloreds, a label which later came to be widely resented, especially from the 1980s, for its neglect of their distinct identity. So if you ask yourself the question, can coloreds say that they're Khoisan? We spoke about culture and identity. We spoke about heritage. Yes. Yes, colored people can say that they are Khoisan. Under the apartheid government, they were forced. Khoisan people were forced to identify as colored. That's the reason why you even have pockets of colored people in other African countries. You have colored people, for instance, as to name but a few, in Namibia, in Botswana, in Zimbabwe. You have colored groups of colored. It might be few and far between, and it might not be a big majority, but that's the reason why you still have people who are classified as coloreds, because they trek to other areas.
But
right?
majority of the SADC remember the SADC was kind of classified under the SADC, which was kind of grouped together as the southern part of Africa, which includes Namibia and Botswana, and in fact, where a lot of the Khoi people were in the Kalahari Desert is in Namibia and Botswana, and that little part of South Africa that kind of goes in between. That's where we went to hunting the last time, in between Namibia and Botswana. So if you're gonna find Khoi, majority of them are actually gonna come from the down there in the Cape, also alongside the Northern Cape, and then in the middle right there, Botswana and Namibia.
Look, we only have 3 minutes left because apparently there's load shedding at 10 o'clock, right? So we have to wrap this up. But the conversation will continue. This is Heritage Month, so we will focus specifically on colored identity and the Khoisan identity. So we will continue next month. Hey, Jess is making ASMRs here. But I want to end off with these few facts that is also found in the book. It's Did You Know? So I'll end off with Did You Know, then I'll ask my yeah, basically we should bring Chappies back, right? And then I'll ask the gentleman on my co-hosts to end off with their 2 cents, their 5 ops. Now it's 10 rands now. Jess, you didn't do a trading segment, bro. But that's fine. Right. Next week we'll do it.
There's a lot of shows.
Here we go. Did you know that Jan van Riebeeck did not arrive in South Africa in 1652 for the first time? No, that was his second visit to Cape Town. And in this book, it will tell you more about how that whole situation happened. And also, these guys that came to, the Europeans that came to Africa, do you know that they were actually convicts that were sent here? Because it's either you come to Africa or you get killed. So, yeah. Then, did you know that David Steerman, a Khoi/colored man from the Eastern Cape, is the only person in history to have escaped from Robben Island twice? The first time was in 1809. My guy escaped Robben Island, bruh. Yo.
I went there with a boat. It's quite far.
Uncle David, big ups to you. Did you know that a Khoisan woman by the name of these guys' ancestor, Sarah Hendricks Schmelen of Namakwaland, co-translated the Gospels of the New Testament into the Nama Khoisan language in the early 1800s? Did you know that, Auntie?
Then you know the Nama population is still big in Namibia.
Yeah, definitely. Nama is basically Khoisan. It's the original. Khoisan. But you must get the book.
I think Namibia kept the heritage quite well.
They
also in
did.
terms
They
of
kept
that,
it better than
because,
we did.
Yeah,
Guys,
they
we've got a
But
couple
they
of
want-
seconds.
but
We've
they
got a
want
couple
so
of seconds.
infiltrated.
Did you
like-
know that the local indigenous Khoisan people of Cape Town defeated the mighty Portuguese military on the beach sands of Salt River in 1510? So, yeah, that's the did you knows, right? And we will continue with the conversation. Like I said, guys, closing remarks before the lights go off.
Closing remark. Please know your history. Go study. Come listen to these shows. Come, let's have open discussion and debate. Don't shy away from it. Don't be scared of it. We need to know where we come from so we can stand strong.
South Africa like to say we're a rainbow nation, but we like to exclude the actual rainbow, which is us, because we are the rainbow, which means we are the nation then. Because you like to exclude us.
Yeah.
So yeah, we are the rainbow nation.
Oh,
so
yeah.
please do include us in everything you do. Thank you very much. Know your history, like Xavier said. Let's continue doing this next week. Hallelujah. Praise God. Move on.
Thank you everybody for tuning in. Happy Heritage Month to everybody. Again, get rug vase, get the books, do the things that need to be done. The information will be in the description. Love you guys. Until next time. Bye.
Bye.